Puppy Playtime Chapter 2 seems to have a major villain called Mummy Longlegs, capable of climbing walls and having involvement in creating hostile dolls such as Huggy Wuggy. Hi folks, I'm R, and welcome to this theory video about Puppy Playtime Chapter 2 trailer. Send me your video suggestions and theories on Twitter, which I could use for the upcoming videos. This video will contain spoilers about Chapter 1. With that said, let's begin. In the first chapter, we learned a little about the cryptic and sinister nature of the Playtime Co. through the perspective of the protagonist, who seemingly is an ex-employee, encouraged to revisit the place and investigate the disappearance of many employees in the organization. As he embarks on his journey, he's faced with an eerily empty factory, haunted by an overshadowing doll called Huggy Wuggy, who at first seems to be a product of the inhumane experiments carried out by the organization. This idea is fortified by listening to the multiple tapes scattered throughout the factory, indicating how secretive the place was during its operation, and how it experimented on its employees, and especially employees that didn't comply with their dictatorial regulations.
In relation, experiment 1006, the prototype. Coordination and cooperation is evidently within his skill set, as well as the skill set of all other experiments of his type.
After defeating the monstrous Huggy Wuggy, the protagonist reaches a playroom, having the popular and well-known puppy doll in a protective glass box, which moves on its own and shocks the protagonist after starting to speak, and implying how relieved it is being found after so long. It's been long theorized that Puppy Doll embodies the soul of an employee candidate called Stella Graber, who showed extreme enthusiasm of working in the Playtime factory, and ironically, how she would love to be eternal and keep the same shape and body, and correspondingly, the same youth.
So, Stella, what made you want to work at the Playtime Co. factory?
Playing with toys when I was young was so magical. I could go straight from my bedroom floor to anywhere in the world. It was such a great feeling. And being able to work at a toy factory, somewhere that can provide kids with that same experience, that's a pretty great feeling too. Sometimes though, I really wish I could go back. To being a kid, I mean. And it's weird, because adults are just kids, but older. I don't think anyone ever really feels like an adult. Your body just gets older and older, and then you die. Poof! Human bodies just can't stay young forever. There's things though, like some trees that can stay alive even while being way older than the person. I mean, the oldest people to ever live are still younger than those. So I guess everyone is always young relative to something, right?
In the Puppy Playtime Chapter 2, a new major enemy is revealed known as Mummy Longlegs, a pink-colored themed doll entity who has 2 legs and 2 arms which stretch and contort, allowing this entity to climb on walls without much trouble. Despite being called Mummy Longlegs, she in fact has long arms correspondingly, as it's clearly shown that 2 of her limbs have fingers and gloves, while the other 2 have flat, long coverings resembling shoes. Puppy has a voiceover who warns the protagonist that she or he is in grave danger and that Mummy doesn't like guests, when Mummy Longlegs herself appears from what seems to be the ceiling in a menacing way, referring to the protagonist as a new playmate, and that it has been so long, suggesting that she has been the culprit of making many people disappear, victims that were possibly given to her by the organization as test subjects, testing the success of their experiments. Mummy seems to be dangerous and a villain by the looks of the trailer, as the protagonist consistently looks up in fear of being taken by Mummy, who climbs on the walls, and according to what Puppy says. In the beginning, a stretching and slithering pink arm, which seems to belong to Mummy, grabs a lifeless body of Huggy Wuggy, taking it to her lair. I believe that Mummy Longlegs had a part in making Huggy Wuggy become hostile, chasing after guests. Maybe Huggy's purpose of chasing the guests was in fact to abduct the visitors and present them to Mummy. There is a scene where the protagonist is surrounded by many Huggy Wuggies having different color tones such as green, pink, and yellow, all observing the protagonist, which indicates that there are more Huggy Wuggies, acting more like retrieving animals for her. Mummy Longlegs' origin is not shown or hinted at, but it seems as if she became as such through the same experiments the company carried out on the other employees. Her nature of being hostile and villainous could be because of the person she used to be before transforming into this monstrosity, or the direct result of the experiment and the aftermath of being isolated for so long that drove her into insanity. In a quick shot of the trailer, many spider webs are observed in the distance, which have trapped some toys, depicting how Mummy Longlegs possibly has the ability to produce sticky spider webs, which she uses in her advantage to trap her victims. Her endgame is not clear, however, to why she traps her victims and why she is hostile, but in theory, it's possible that she traps them in order to fill the void of being lonely and isolated, trapped in the factory like many other test subjects, being a victim herself. Only with time, we would learn more about this entity and what her true intentions are. Some other enemies are shown in the trailer, a sunflower type of doll, which is holding onto the ceiling, which isn't moving at all. It's not fully clear if this doll-like entity is hostile or friendly, and even if it's actually alive or not. The following shot reveals that Playtime Co. in fact had small-sized sunflower dolls, which could be an indication of a direct comparison to how a standard sunflower doll is different to an experimented-on a live sunflower doll. Subsequently, in a playground, a slithering caterpillar is chasing after the protagonist, which also shows that there are a lot more enemies than previously thought. That's when Poppy mentions that Mummy is watching the protagonist's every move, and that Mummy doesn't like guests.
You're in grave danger. She's watching your every move. So you better be careful. Mommy doesn't like guests.
This could potentially mean that majority of the hostile dolls do not talk, such as Huggy Wuggy, with all have transformed into these dolls due to Mummy being involved. The reason why Huggy Wuggy acted like a robotic guard on the first chapter, not seemingly having higher cognitive ability to communicate his personal expressions and mindset, is due to being handcrafted by Mummy, and not actually having a soul. Mummy grabbing Huggy Wuggy's motionless body could show that she wants to repair him and put him back into the field, as she seemingly controls majority of the dolls. Poppy explains that the protagonist is too important to be lost, seemingly talking to him right after being found in the playroom, who explains to the protagonist that Mummy is the head villain in the factory, at least for now or as far as it concerns her. Poppy seems to be a doll intending to run away from the grasps of Mummy Longlegs, hence why she calls the protagonist perfect and too perfect to be lost, as he could potentially free Poppy alongside any other souls contained in the factory. In fact, he's the only hope that they all have. Poppy seems to have characteristics of an ally and even possibly the person who wrote the letter, asking for someone to visit the factory and help them, but the ambiguous nature of the plot and the factory could also indicate no one in the factory is trustworthy, and the protagonist could simply be another victim lured in there, or another test subject who's not aware of their own situation.
Terrible things have happened. Where do I even begin? You are perfect. Too perfect to lose. A new playmate. It's been so long.
That's it for today's video, folks. I have some more ideas and theories, which I might make subsequent videos for. Make sure to stay tuned for them by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one.